Has anything changed in that directive under your guidance, given what happened 2 days ago at Fort Bragg? Is there a new policy change that we're not aware of?
Again, I totally reject your insinuation.
As a junior officer, were you ever required to make a pledge of political loyalty? Yes or no?
Sir, as you know, we're
General,
an apolitical
I have limited
military,
time.
so, no.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, I don't say this lightly. I have to say this on the record. I think your tenure as Secretary of Defense has been shameful and weak, and you should resign. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you both for being here. We have all worn the uniform. We've all served in combat. We all love our country. We all revere our troops. And I really want to speak with you both, not as partisans, but as patriots. And I want to talk specifically about the events at Fort Bragg the other day. General Kane, I want to start with you. As a junior officer, were you ever required to make a pledge of political loyalty? Yes or no?
Sir, as you know, we're an apolitical military, so, no.
Thank you. At any time in your 30-plus years of incredibly distinguished service, did you have to make a pledge of partisan or political loyalty?
No, sir.
Thank you. Did you ever serve in any unit or command at any level where service members were required to make a pledge of political loyalty?
No, sir.
Thank you. And I want to commend you. You've been on the record on this, including in your confirmation hearings where you clarified, quote, "I've never worn any political merchandise or said anything to that effect." I appreciate that. That is the standard, and I commend you for saying so and continuing to model that. General Kane, one last question for you. Should soldiers have to pledge political loyalty to participate in an event with our Commander-in-Chief? Yes or no, please.
Sir, I'm not. First, no. I'm not aware of any time in history that soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines have been asked to do that. I think.
And I'm sorry, General. I do want to, just in the interest of time, I want to talk about what happened at Fort Bragg 2 days ago. There was guidance put out, and this has been verified by multiple independent news outlets, saying, quote, these are to the soldiers of the 18th Airborne Corps and the U.S. Army. "If soldiers have political views that are in opposition to the current administration, then they need to speak with their leadership and get swapped out." This is swapped out of the event with the president. In addition, in an incredibly disturbing incident, there was a pop-up shop selling MAGA merchandise on post at Fort Bragg. And to summarize this, there was a commander from Bragg who said on the record, quote, "This has been a bad week for the Army, for anyone who cares about us being a neutral institution. This was shameful." If those are the facts, and I know the Army is investigating at least the MAGA pop-up shop, is that appropriate, General Kane?
Sir, I haven't seen any of these reports. I'm not familiar with them, but as I mentioned earlier and in my confirmation hearing, the nation demands a apolitical, nonpartisan military.
I appreciate you saying that and happy to share those reports. Secretary Hegseth, are you familiar with DoD Directive 1344.10? Political activities of the members of the armed forces?
Well, first off, I don't buy into your
yes or no?
insinuation
Are you familiar
that pledges
with,
are being done under this administration. That's
I reclaim my
insinuation.
time. Are you familiar with this DoD directive?
There's never one time in my service or in this
Mr.
Defense
Secretary,
Department.
will you please answer
I'm answering your
these
question
questions?
where politics has been considered for service members.
Are you familiar with this directive? Yes or no?
Which directive?
DoD Directive 1344.10. I'm happy to provide you a copy. There's even a one-page red and green cheat sheet. Are you familiar with it? This is the same directive from when we were all in uniform.
I'm sure I am.
Has anything changed in that directive under your guidance, given what happened 2 days ago at Fort Bragg? Is there a new policy change that we're not aware of?
Again, I totally reject your insinuation.
Is there a policy change to DoD Directive 1344.10?
I know what you're attempting to insinuate, but there's
I'll
no
take that as a
policy
no.
change and there is no policy.
Mr. Secretary, have you ever worn a MAGA hat in front of the troops?
I own plenty of MAGA hats, but I don't.
Have you ever worn one in front of the troops at an official event? I don't believe so. I don't believe so. Do you think it's appropriate for the President of the United States to wear political merchandise, including a MAGA hat, at official events, including West Point commencement?
The Commander-in-Chief
yes or no?
Can wear whatever hat he wants, to include the phrase, "Make America Great Again," because I would like to make America great again as well.
So you think that's appropriate?
The Commander-in-Chief has the right, in front of his troops, to wear whatever he'd like.
Okay, I strongly disagree with you. And I urge you both, especially you, General Kane, as we see an increasingly political rhetoric, including from the Secretary, to please, for the good of our troops, This is an incredibly difficult moment, and we need leaders like you to continue to echo the apolitical nature. I have 12 seconds. Mr. Secretary, I don't say this lightly. I have to say this on the record. I think your tenure as Secretary of Defense has been shameful and weak, and you should resign. I yield back.
What you just watched was more than an on-the-record rebuke. It was a defensive act for the Republic. When Pat Ryan, himself a veteran who served in combat, told Secretary Hegseth bluntly that you should resign, he wasn't firing off partisan rhetoric. He was spelling out a basic constitutional truth. The military exists to protect the Constitution, not to serve as a stage for partisan loyalty. That matters because once the line between uniformed service and party politics blurs, everything that depends on a trusted, professional military starts to fray. Start with the simple moral frame. Soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines swear an oath to the Constitution, and for a reason. Civilians make policy, the military executes it. That separation protects both democracy and the troops themselves. When orders are perceived as politically motivated, unit cohesion and morale suffer. A soldier's willingness to follow commands depends on trust that those orders are lawful, competent, and apolitical. Ask yourself, would you want the person sending your kid into harm's way to be choosing followers based on campaign allegiance? That's what Ryan was warning against. Technically, there are rules on this. Service members face limits on overt partisan activity because of doctrine and DoD policy. Civilian Pentagon leaders are expected to model nonpartisanship. Those rules exist not as niceties, but to keep the chain of command clean. In this hearing, Ryan forced a reality check. Reports of pledge-like requirements at Fort Bragg and MAGA merchandise popping up on post aren't trivial optics. They are the kinds of behaviors that invite erosion of norms, legal exposure, and, most important, the perception that readiness is subordinate to politics. Look at the practical costs. When the line between politics and defense gets shaky, our adversaries notice. An apolitical military is a predictable, credible instrument of national power. A politicized one becomes unreliable in the eyes of allies and enemies. Diplomats and commanders abroad depend on continuity and civilian control that is principled, not performative. Domestically, politicization damages recruiting and retention. Young people sign up believing in service above self. When they see uniforms used as campaign props, it changes the calculus for who wants to serve. Then there's integrity and accountability. Ryan's questions were surgical. Did soldiers have to pledge allegiance to a political cause to appear at an event? Was political merchandise being sold on base? Did senior leaders enforce neutrality? Hegseth's equivocations, owning MAGA hats but unable to confirm whether he'd worn one in front of troops, dodging direct answers about guidance changes, are more revealing than a flat denial would have been. Leaders who cannot plainly affirm nonpartisanship create an accountability vacuum. Accountability must be applied equally to commanders and civilians who occupy the highest offices. If the top says accountability is back, but then hides behind rhetoric when pressed, the phrase becomes performative. There's also a deeper institutional risk. The militarization of political disputes and the politicization of military institutions can snowball into policy errors. Decisions about force posture, rules of engagement, basing, and readiness are complex and should be informed by strategy, not by the short-term optics of a rally. When political loyalty crowds out expertise, procurement and operational choices suffer. The result is wasted resources, broken programs, and, worst of all, avoidable risk to lives. Ryan's demand, not for hyperbole, but for resignation, is not personal vendetta. It's a standing demand that those who ask citizens to risk everything must themselves demonstrate unambiguous fitness for the role. The Senate's advice and consent responsibility exists for precisely this reason, to vet whether nominees can stand above factional loyalties and uphold the laws, norms, and ethical obligations that keep the institution trustworthy. What should a concerned citizen do after watching this? First, pay attention. Follow reputable reporting and official inquiries into the incidents Ryan cited. Second, hold your representatives to account. Ask for transparent investigations, clear guidance from the Department of Defense about political activity on installations, and public affirmations that the military will remain apolitical. Third, support veterans and rank-and-file service members whose careers and reputations are put at risk when leadership fails to set the right example. This exchange is a civic lesson more than a political moment. It teaches that institutions survive when people inside and outside them insist they do, when citizens demand clarity rather than euphemism, when leaders answer plainly rather than obfuscate. Pat Ryan reminded the country that service isn't a platform for partisan theater. It's a commitment to something higher.